building something that's seemingly impossible versus just working.
There is no exit plan. There's millions, probably billions of dollars worth of investment and capital that needs to flow into this.
That's incredible. I find that really incredible, to be quite honest.
I think we need to start talking about it differently, because what I want my kids to be able to have the same opportunities that I had and or that their grandparents might have had.
Man, I can't wait to see how this plays out. Like this is gonna be amazing for the world. Hey everybody, welcome to the Bayhaus Creative Podcast. I'm here today with Matt Freniere. He is the co-founder of a startup called Steppe and a former commanding officer of a nuclear submarine. Thanks for being here with us, and it's really great having you here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Loc. It's been great to get to know you over the last 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about startups and about the startup journey. And I want to kind of start there with you, if you don't mind. So, Matt, you spent years leading inside highly structured, high-stakes systems, right? Where standards, accountability, and consequences were crystal clear because they had to be, right? But today, you're building Steppe, where the structure itself is still being formed by yourself and your co-founder. So I'm curious, what's carried over cleanly from your past experiences, right? Those days when you were commanding submarines, and especially your time as the commanding officer of one of those submarines. What's carried over into building this cutting edge startup that you're building today?
Yeah, I think a number of things jump right into what we do at Steppe. And Kevin and I, it's been the two of us for about 2.5 years. There's a lot of engineering associated with what we're doing. There's a lot of accountability. He and I are both accountable to each other for everything that we do every day. We both know that if neither one of us performs, like Steppe wouldn't exist. So that helps to keep us focused on the mission for Steppe. Fortunately, it's a mission-driven business, opportunity venture for us. We talked through a lot of that in the first 6 to 9 months where we came together. We hammered out those mission, vision, values, why we're doing what we're doing. And we didn't have the exact same reasons for doing it, but both of the reasons were important enough for both of us to commit to this venture. Kevin often phrases it in the fact like this is our kind of second career and second start, and we have an opportunity in this second career to do something different than what we've done in the first part, but just as impactful. And so I think having that mission focus has helped us both to be able to work hard. There's, in my role as a commanding officer and what we would train the guys on, you have to perform your job like as if, in some cases, your life depends upon it. And other times, nobody's going to check you. Sometimes you're the only person doing it, and you have to do it well. So I think a lot of those have carried over. Interestingly, because there's just two of us, the leadership that you'd normally think of for a crew of 160 doesn't exist. But there's still challenges. There's still disagreements. There's still constructive friction. Having a 30-year relationship with your co-founder has been critical to how we can interact, how we can have that constructive discourse. We've certainly, from time to time, you do get off a call, you're frustrated at the other, but you lean back into the 30 years, the remembering being in each other's weddings, remembering the stupid stuff we did when we were younger, and, a day or two or an hour later, it's all in perspective and you move out on what the mission is.
Man, I love the fact that you're framing this as your second careers. I think that makes a lot of sense for a veteran, because what you're doing at Steppe is different, right, from your past.
In many ways it is, but in some ways it's all the same too. It's engineering. It's solving hard problems. It's doing things that we don't have the resources and should not have been able to do. Mm-hmm. There's two of us, and somehow we've gone out. We've raised $16 million to build a facility that nobody else has built before. Just recently, during the commissioning of the facility, we had all of our vendors on site, And despite the fact that these vendors have been selling and putting together their equipment and recommending that people put it together in this kind of the same kind of configuration where you can generate renewable energy, this is the first time they've ever seen it all come together. And it worked the first day. It was absolutely incredible. They had not shared with us beforehand that nobody had actually ever pulled off what they were recommending. And even the lead on the kiln that's in the facility, he was like, "Oh, this is the first time we've actually generated power from our machine." I'm like, "You didn't quite tell me that when you were selling me these machines. Like, I thought this had been done before." So there's definitely been some highs, a lot more highs than lows for sure. But that's what you have when you bring two capable veterans focused on a mission.
Yeah, you brought up the fact that, you're not commanding hundreds of individuals anymore, right? And you're responsible for a much smaller amount of people, but a great mission nevertheless. Have you had to unlearn any habits or characteristics that you, over the last 30 years, have really ingrained into your psyche and the way you operate?
There's less delegation. I don't have, again, Kevin and I aren't delegating. We certainly help one another. And there's still part of leadership is getting somebody to do something that they may not otherwise want to do. And so, Kevin and I do lead each other, like from time to time. There's times he doesn't want to do something, or sometimes I don't want to do something. And it still works out. Like we figure out how to make that work. I think more so than maybe this time now, going through, I had the opportunity to attend UVA's Darden School of Business post-XO. So after 15 years of service in the Navy, incredible opportunity, highly recommended to anybody that gets a chance to go to a school of that class, but especially Darden has a special place in my heart. But they had gone through and taught a lot of different leadership skills than what you may get exposed to in the military. I had 15 years of, the game tape to run back through and think about things that I had done wrong or things that I could do better or things that I'd done right as well. Like there's a mix of those, and to have that reflection before going into command was super powerful. I'm also excited about, we're kind of getting to an inflection point where we're about to start hiring at Cold Step, about setting that culture. We're going to redial back in on the mission, vision, values, make sure that that's set so that everything can flow down from there as we start to onboard and make sure that we're mission aligned with the people that want to come serve with us and carry out, both the mission for Cold Step and what we can have an impact from an environmental or climate change perspective, but also the regenerative ag, which is our first step in that role to help. And again, it's just a neat opportunity. I can't think of anybody that doesn't want to help farmers farm better, help them with certainly where we are today versus where we might have been 50 or 60 years ago in farming. It's harder. Commodity prices, some of the stuff that's going on politically has made it challenging for them, and to be there and to believe in our solution and have a lot of farmers and other supporters across Arkansas has been quite incredible.
Yeah, I love that you are revisiting your why, right? I think that's really important, and being someone who believes that the mission is incredibly important in terms of dictating the decisions that you make, not only as a leader and a founder, but just the decisions that you make in life. Where does life take you? And I to me, with Cold Step, you're building something physical, it's place-based, and it's deeply community-oriented. So which of these early decisions have you been most intentional about in terms of slowing down, being really thoughtful about the decisions that you and Kevin are making because they're important, as opposed to what people traditionally think of as a startup, which is like you're just going, at a breakneck pace, and you're not really allowed to kind of like slow down and take a moment to think through what you're doing?
I think probably the best example of that was when we decided to come together in August of 2023 and take a shot at this. Our background experiences, where we were both in life, led us to have the opportunity where we were both just available at the right time. Both of us having the commitment I don't know if you want to call it grit or stamina to climb through the piles of regulations and policies and think about how recent changes could have enabled the business that we were thinking about. And so we took a good 5 to 6 months thinking about, can we make this work before we went all in with our chips, which, we're both fully invested in what we're doing, both time commitment wise, and then also retirements, everything's in on Cold Steppe. And it wasn't a decision of like, let's do the thing like, where Cortez burned the fleet on the shores. It wasn't intentional like that, but it certainly makes you, there's no quitting at this point. And so we had thought about the mission. We were comfortable with that. But we had spent 6 to 9 months thinking about it. We got out there, we talked to farmers. Were farmers interested in what we were doing? Did we have the right approach? We sought outside counsel to make sure that it all made sense. And, we had a couple of influential initial both advisory meetings as well as the farmer meetings were instrumental in helping to confirm that the planning had been done right. Kevin and I both believe if it's a reversible decision, make it, move out on it. And then if it doesn't work out, go back and change your mind as the facts may change. And then on some of the harder decisions that aren't reversible, we do slow down. We do take more time. Regarding intentionality, though, one of the things I love and has gone really well for us was we were very specific to be intentional about trying to benefit the community from the start. And so we specifically hired the construction crews locally because we wanted to benefit them. It also tied into some of the funding that we were getting, and that because that funding was aligned with what we wanted to do anyway, it made it very easy. And so we went very local. We had kind of 3 main suppliers that helped us build this facility in a breakneck speed. One was kind of the building and the foundations. There was another one that was doing earthwork to get everything prepped for that period. And then AP Fabrication is the local vendor who installs equipment, works all the mills. And the interesting part is like these guys, as well as going with like a local insurance team, they know everybody in the industry. Intros are just coming left and right. They love what we're doing. They love working with us. And so that intentionality on going local, wanting to have that impact, them seeing that, not just in some words, but day-to-day execution, trusting them to do their job, and investing in them has come back tenfold.
Man, that the due diligence that you've done speaks volumes, because you're saying things like, we took 6 months, we took 3 months. Like, you're really taking a solid amount of time, not rushing through this journey, this process, and really doing your due diligence to make the right decisions, which I think it speaks to your experience as a leader and Kevin's experience as a leader as well. How do you keep that culture of leadership alive and true to yourself and to Kevin's philosophy of leadership? Because on one hand, you could say, okay, well, we're the founders, the co-founders, and we're going to just embed this philosophy into Cold Steppe. On the other hand, someone could argue that as you're hiring, you're going to be distilling that leadership, and who knows where that goes, depending on who you happen to hire and who comes into the organization as the numbers grow from 10s to 20 to 50, 100 people.
Yeah, I think on the hiring part, again, not that everybody has to look like us, but they have to be aligned with the mission. They have to have character. They have to. We're not going to tell them that it's going to be easy, because it's not. There's going to be a lot of hard work. We're not going to intentionally say that you have to work hard, but there's a lot to be accomplished in a short period of time with what the mission is, to both help farmers in the regenerative ag side and to have a substantial impact on climate, which is the mission. So early on, I think the building the team over the next year, Kevin and I will be directly involved in that. Even though we've got a good team that's going to be leading us through that process, we'll still be involved in probably every hire in Stuttgart. So our first facility is in Stuttgart, Arkansas. Kevin and I will personally be involved, in those interviews. And so there will be some time where you can't be involved, but at that point, you have to have done that training that we talked about and instill those leadership skills. And so making sure that people are aligned with you along the way are some of the things that pop into my mind.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And we both have Sean Kelly on our side, so good for us.
It will make it easier, that's for sure.
So this might not pertain to Cold Step as much as it pertains to leadership and building teams at large, but do you think often about the differences between progressing and building and moving forward versus just kind of going through the motions? Are those concepts different to you?
I can't imagine that there's ever been a time period for, certainly for myself and also for Kevin, where we're not trying to advance. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, physically, emotionally, your family, and then figuring out what you can do better, whether it's, self-study, reading frequently, reflection. I know Kevin does a bunch of journaling. Those are things that work well for him. I love to read, on the leadership aspects, whether it's, something like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I end up going back to that book at least once a year to kind of just have a level set. And again, not that there's been anything untoward in what's, in the life that I've lived, but sometimes, just you have various emotions. And so going back and reading something like that, Frankl was a Auschwitz survivor. And so he lays that part out in the beginning of the book. It helps you go, nothing's really that bad compared to what some of the people went through then. Then his laying out of how that formed his perception of what keeps us going and drive, to survive, has always helped me. But I don't think there's much of a just progressing through life for either one of us. Like you don't found a company if you're just progressing through life.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because living with purpose and just making decisions based on something purposeful is required for a startup founder, of course, but I'm just not sure that it's very common amongst the rest of the society because, there's something to be said about building something that's seemingly impossible versus just working, making it through the day, making it through Monday, and then making it all the way through Friday and kind of taking a break and doing it all over again, right?
Yeah. No, that doesn't happen. It's, I was talking to one of the other vets last night at dinner and they had mentioned, so what's harder? And I was like, founding is, harder than being a CEO on a ballistic missile boat, if you can imagine it. Everything up to that point in my career had been preparing me to take over command and to lead the team. Like I said, I was extremely fortunate to have the amazing experience at Darden to, further bolster that leadership experience. And so when you go into that, again, you got a team, you got an amazing XO, you got an amazing, chief of the boat that are there to help, that are similarly mission oriented. But on this founding idea and the fact that we've tried to stay as skinny as possible, minimize any investment that's not directly related to getting that facility up and operating. And then once it's up and operating, now you can start to think about now what do we do and get that revenue going.
So you spent about 2.5 years up to this point with Kevin building Cold Step. And these are the early days because you're scratching the surface really. But that being said, what insights are clearer today than they were when you started this journey?
I think the commercialization path is still a little scary, as we've still got to prove it out. But when we get out there and we talk to farmers about the product, we haven't even talked about what we're actually doing. But if you want to think about it as a service for the farmers or the product that goes into their ground and a way for them to invest in their soil, and they don't have a lot of things that allow them to invest in their soil. There's a lot of things that farmers use that they have to pay for, but most of that gets used up. So I'm mainly talking about like a fertility or fertilizers, water, those things, they're temporal, if you will. And part of what, farmers are doing is every day, in order for them to get paid, they've got to try and generate as much as possible from that land. So every year, some farmers are in this routine of, I'm going to try and generate as much as I can so I can be as profitable as I can, or so that it's not always about profitability, but so they can produce as much as they can. They're proud. They want to do well. And so there's a difference in that in trying to also take care of the soil and be regenerative to the soil and produce better food, higher quality. So understanding that the product that farmers want, what we're doing, that they see the value in adding the carbon back to the soil. It has a specific scientific effect, which is called, it adds cation exchange capacity, which is like this, if you think about it as a negative net that would be cast out over the soil, which helps to hold on to the positively charged fertility. And so you go out and you talk to almost any farmer. I can't think of one right now that we've talked to. We talked to them about it's a way to add this key physical element back to their soil, and they just get excited because it doesn't exist any other way. And so knowing that now, it's not about do they want this? It's about how can we get the cost down as quickly as possible so we can get it out to as many farmers as possible. It's a scaling issue. Can we scale fast enough, get it down fast enough? And then guess what? The more that we do that and the more that we get out to the farmers, the more carbon we're capturing as well.
That's a mission. I mean, I've heard startup founders over the last couple of days talking about their missions, but that's a mission to me that is really, really complicated. But at the end of the day, it's a very noble mission, right? Just helping farmers is really what I'm hearing, and doing things for them that don't exist in today's world.
That's right. And it goes back to the mission. When during that initial 6-month period, again, Kevin and I talked about coming at it from two different perspectives. There's lots of different ways to try and come up with a solution. But when we realized that our solution to actually solve this other thing over here involved solving a problem for the farmers, it's actually a critical business decision as well. Because what we said was, you can't have a viable, scalable climate solution without having something that's profitable. There's a lot of solutions in climate that it's actually a liability because you don't end up with a product at the end of it. And so liabilities aren't scalable. You can't scale something that's losing 10%. It's just not going to work. And so this might be more detailed than needed, but the other part is like in submarines, when we go out and we're operating underneath the surface of the ocean, we're actually in a contained environment. And so submarines have had two of the other primary types of carbon capture technology that are popular today on board the submarines. One's called direct air capture. On a submarine, we call it a CO2 scrubber. So that's the normal piece of equipment that runs, and you pull air through this chemical mix called MEA or monoethylamine, and it pulls the CO2 out of the air at a given temperature, and then you change the temperature and it releases the CO2, and we push that over the side of the submarine. The backup means if we lost all power is essentially a mineralization process similar to enhanced rock weathering. There's not a lot of people who can say that they've got 20 years of experience in carbon capture technology, but anybody that's coming from a submarine or operating on the space station as another example of a place where you're in a contained atmosphere and you've got to capture the CO2 and turn it over into something. But as we started evaluating a problem, and again, Kevin had been thinking about it a lot longer time period than I had, but as you start evaluating a problem, you quickly realize that those other two are either energy intensive or aren't scalable because they're not producing a product that somebody's going to end up using or paying for. And if all that's being bought at some point in time is the carbon credits, where's the business value? Where's the economic value being driven? And so that's where we got excited about biochar. And our specific approach to biochar is one where we knew what some of the common obstacles were to getting farmer adoption. And so we looked at those. We figured out how to change something about the business model to then make it to where, not make it, but to where farmers looked at it and they go, oh, no, this makes sense. I want that. And so one of those key changes is a lot of people in the space try and use wood-based biochar. and talking to a farmer in Arkansas about using a wood-based biochar product, although for the most part, probably very good for them to use. There's an adoption hurdle about something that's coming out of a forest going into their farmland. But when we talked to them about the fact that we're using rice hulls that came from potentially their field or their neighbor's field, went to their local mill, came to our facility, was turned into biochar, and now we're bringing carbon and silica back to their soil, they get excited about it. They know that that's natural. It's, biomimicry, if you will, or circular.
Man, that is a very thoughtful, deeply resonating mission. That's incredible. I find that really incredible, to be quite honest. As you look ahead, what feels most important to get right? Not because it's urgent, but if you don't get it right today, it's just going to compound and get worse over the course of time.
I thought I was going to sidestep something you said earlier, but probably one of the most important things for Kevin and I as we're on this journey, it's a physical infrastructure play. There's a renewable energy component. This is not a software solution that you can just spin up a bunch of machines on. This is a long-term play. It's going to be expensive, and so what goes with that is the capital stack and who's in it, who's in it with you. So we've been very thoughtful about that part, and it's actually interesting. We had a conversation with some additional advisors that are helping us out in this area, and there was a lot of discussion about how quick we needed money to be able to scale. And I told you already that was already part of the quicker we can scale, the quicker we can make it affordable for the farmers, the quicker we can have an impact for them, which has an impact, for the world. But getting the wrong source of capital, getting misaligned capital would probably be one of the biggest mistakes that we can make. So again, we're at military veteran startups today. A lot of people, a lot of thoughts, and one of the, a potential investor asked, so what's the exit plan? And I just kind of looked around and I was like, the exit plan is that we fix the planet first. Like, there's a lot of work to be done. There is no exit plan. There's millions, probably billions of dollars worth of investment and capital that needs to flow into this. And so that's the wrong answer if you're talking to a VC, but it's the right answer if you want to get aligned investors. And so, we kind of chunk it up into, we either want people that are interested in helping the planet. And another way that we like to think about this as well on helping the planet before I go into the second one is, like you look at this year and you look at skiing, we love to ski and we haven't been able to go skiing this year. I don't know if that's, anybody else, but I think Tahoe's affected, Washington's affected, Colorado's had crap skiing. I guess if you're on the East Coast for the first time in your life, it's actually been good snow out there, but everywhere else. And so to me, there's also this, I think we need to start talking about it differently, because what I want my kids to be able to have the same opportunities that I had and or that their grandparents might have had. And there's things today that you can't do that you could have done, whether you're a hunter and you want to hunt, whatever it may be. I mean, there's some decline in some areas. And so how can we kind of turn that around and again, give the same opportunity to the future generation? I think that got me off track on the aligned investors. Where I was going to go is, so you either have to be down on that side and believe in that from a investment for good and impact, or you have to believe in regenerative ag and the power that can bring, and you want to help out the food systems. I like that Sean always talks when we do calls. So Sean will jump on a call from time to time with us, and quite the cheerleader. But we'll get through, and we try and actually keep it relatively simple because there's so much complexity in what we're doing, and we try and how can we just get somebody interested in what we're doing initially? And then he loves to take the thing of the as seen on TV and or, he always goes, and there's more. And then he'll, guide us towards whatever the next thing is. And so there's a whole nother thing that we're working on with the biochar, where you can also reduce arsenic, heavy metal, lead concentrations in some of the food that we produce. And there's just all these different offshoots. And so we're working with a number of university professors and people that do the real research to prove some of that out. Some of it's already been proven, but there's some other specifics that we're working on as well that'll be exciting. So
Man, I can't wait to see how this plays out. Like this is going to be amazing for the world, and like you said, for our kids and for the next generation that's coming up. So personally, I am really glad that you're working on this problem. So thank you for sharing. We'll hopefully be able to pick up this conversation at a later time and get some updates from you in terms of how Cold Steppe is going. But for today, I just want to thank you for being on this podcast with us, and we'll see you next time. And for the folks that are watching and listening, thank you for being here with us, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.